Says I'm going live. I think I'm live. So, hi everyone, Erin Zen Warrior here. Interesting topic for you today, and it was a really interesting moment for me to consider that. So first of all, don't forget to like and subscribe. Today we're talking about attitudes of prejudice and supporting those attitudes of prejudice. So I think we live in a really interesting bridge in time where this divine consciousness occurrence is clearly happening. Like, I can see that conscious awareness rising up. As a holistic practitioner in what I do, I find myself coaching people more towards meditation than I do towards doing a lunch, and towards breath work and all of that sort of stuff. And I still do everything, but I do what is needed at the time. And so I also find myself kneeling on people less, because I do a mode of body work using a lot of compression techniques and Thai techniques and osteopathic techniques. But I find myself very much more just sitting with people and getting them to tune into their energy. And so as I do this, we see, or as I'm practicing this, I see two things. I see people who've never been interested before in their spiritual side of life, who've been very, very good in business and all that sort of stuff, are the people that are sitting on my mat. And they're looking for something else, because everything they were promised about success actually wasn't true. Like, it's all well and good, and money is a useful tool to have for your freedom. But a lot of people who attain it get to this point where they realize actually money doesn't solve your problems. It just gives you facility to have access to a lot of things that maybe will. The reality is that actually anyone has access to things that will solve their problems without even needing money. And quite often, by accessing those things, money will come anyway. But it doesn't matter which order you do it in, as long as you get there eventually, right? So anyway, all of that said, there's this other side of it where there's this highlighted shadow mentality going on. And I don't just see it. So you notice I put pro-vax and anti-vax in the title of this. And the reason for that is because actually when it came to the protest here in New Zealand, because people were so angry, they were hating each other from both sides. So both sides are doing it. I feel like I'm quoting someone rather famous right now. So you had the people who were very pro-vax, very much hating the anti-vax crew. And I use that term begrudgingly because actually pro-vax and anti-vax to me is incorrect. That's a redefinition. A lot of these people over here in this group are vaccinated with many vaccines, and they're not anti-vax at all. They just weren't pro this one. And these people are pro this one, right? So I'd like to just start out by saying I don't agree with those terms under the definition that they seem to have been allowed to live in. A lot of the people over here very much vaccinated their children, did all of that sort of stuff. And that term is actually pretty derogatory. And when I find people using it, unfortunately, like I just did, when I find people using it in common language, etc., I have a tendency to correct them. There are, of course, within that, some people who didn't vaccinate their children either. But that's a different discussion. It shouldn't be wrapped up here. But I see, these people hating on these people because they didn't do what they should have done. And I see these people hating on these people because they didn't defend them, because they didn't stand up for human rights. They didn't, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm saying this more as like trying to represent my interpretation of the two sides. In New Zealand, these people over here, if they stayed without a vaccine, didn't get to keep their jobs in most cases. In most cases, not in all, but in most cases. There's a lot of people out there who've been disenfranchised because they did what they felt was right for them. These people over here still hating on these people, they did what was right for them. They still have their jobs. So you can see why there'd be a bit of hate going this way. In this person's case over here, when they get this lurgy, this virus, they hate on these people because somehow they've been told that these people are responsible for it. And yet there's so much evidence to say that that's not true. But irrespective of the reality of the facts in this situation, it's actually this attitude that I want to talk about more than what is the truth about who should be hating who. Because my contention is that nobody should be hating anyone. is that everybody is entitled to the freedom of their own opinion, and that your hate is actually your own. Your tendency to look out into the outside world and think that someone else is responsible for what is going on in your life is a method through which you are disempowering yourself. So if you land over in this group and you choose to swim no matter what, you are going to swim. And I know that's a fact because I've seen plenty of people swim who are over here, who are actually doing okay. But those are also people that don't look at these people and hate them because of the way their life turned out. And vice versa, that should apply the other way around too. So you got a virus, and in the words of Joe Dispenza, to quote him, I hope he doesn't mind, you don't make me sick, I make me sick. A virus doesn't get me, I get me. I disempower my body and I get sick. I become unconscious and I get sick. And this is the path of the meditator. This is the responsibility I take. And hey, I got COVID. I didn't get that sick, I have to say. I was one of the people that didn't get that sick, but I knew I wouldn't. I did, however, resign myself somehow to getting it, and I wonder whether that made me more susceptible. What is funny is since I've had it, I feel somewhat more bulletproof. It's like I kind of bought some of the narrative that everybody's going to get COVID, and by doing that, maybe I made myself sick, you know? Maybe I allowed my defenses to sit down a bit, whereas I don't get the flu. I don't get a lot of those things. So, yeah, I mean, that's just a reflection for myself. But beyond this one person hating another and another group hating another, and really they're in this perfect balance and reflection of each other, which I find kind of amusing. The thing that also I notice here is that this person is hating and this person is hating. And when you hate, all you do is drink your own poison and expect the other person to die. Now, in my Buddha nature, I am not going to encourage this. I don't want to listen to it even, right? But when I do hear it, I'm going to say, hey, what you're doing here is only making your own situation worse. Yeah, they might be wrong. They might be. They might not be either. That's your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. You can express your anger about it. But to threaten violence, to take it that step further, to live in the anger and wake up every day feeding your anger about how ignorant or stupid or whatever it is these groups of people are, you're only screwing yourself on this one, and not in a good way. Right? You're only messing with your own karma. You are literally every day getting up and living in a toxic emotion. And do you know what toxic emotions do? Well, anger and resentment, these are the emotions of cancer. This is cancer. So how long do you want to be cancerous? And while you vibrate angry and resentful, you're going to spread that. Because the funny thing about negative emotions, they're instantly infectious. You open your mouth and you use those words, and then another person comes along and feels for you and empathizes with you. And what they do is they start to take on your emotional shit, especially if they're a bit unconscious. I'm not picking on the unconscious, but this is the risk you run if you don't get up and do your meditation every day. You may become infected with someone else's anger, and they may infect you as their friend, not wanting to. And now what they've done is they've lowered your vibration too. So I saw this post on Facebook the other day, and it was the second post that this person had put up. Now, I had ignored the first one so much I couldn't even remember who'd posted it. So I couldn't go and unfriend them, thinking actually maybe I just don't want to read this toxicity. And then there's another part of me that ignorant people exist. I don't care. Like, their toxicity doesn't affect me. That's my conscious choice. And so their first post was, I've got COVID, little photo of the COVID rat test. I'm going to spit in a bucket and throw it at the anti-vaxxers and the anti-maskers. And I was like, wow. You know, and this was only 6 weeks ago. And I was like, wow, the venom that this person holds towards a group of people that I think, to some extent, have been somewhat vindicated, you know. And also there's a lot of people in this country that I've spoken to who got vaccinated because they had to, not because they wanted to, not because they believed in it. So I'm like, how many people are actually truly, really pro this versus how many people just did it because they had to, that fall into our apparent 90% vaccinated or whatever we're up to now. Anyway, whatever, let that go. A couple of days ago, another post popped up from this person. I was like, must take note of who that person is. And I haven't unfriended them yet because I wanted to do this response video. And I hope they see it. I really hope they see it. And I really hope that it changes their thinking. I really hope that. I don't expect it to at all. Because this person is 5 weeks later still sick. Maybe they have comorbidities. Maybe that's why they're still sick 5 weeks later. Maybe that's what's going on here. Holistically, that's a whole different conversation for me. But she gave a layout of the misery she's gone through for the last 5 weeks and how horrible it's been. And I'd love to say I feel sorry for you, but then we all had to deal with this, you know. And so I feel compassion for my fellow man that gets sick under any sickness. But I also, as I said, I recognize I make me sick, right? So if I'm going to take that radical responsibility, I'm also going to give that back to you. You make you sick. You're the reason that you have comorbidities. You're the reason that your anger and resentment has led to cancer. You're the reason. And if you take the responsibility for that and you sit down and you do the meditation, maybe you can be the reason you get well. So this person writing another post doesn't surprise me. At the very end of her misery, which was long and detailed, she said, I can't wait for the plague rats to have another event so that I can go and spit in their face with a brick. Gotta hand it to her. She's colourful. And just at the bottom of that, it's funny that I stopped to read this, actually. I think it was because I recognized that the writer was the same one. And I was like, who is this person? What does she have to say now? And then she is in a similar community to me. That's why we're friends on Facebook. And I taught in that community for a long time. And I noticed a couple of my, what I would say close friends, had liked this post. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, seriously, what? You're supporting this person's dis-ease. You're supporting this person's anger. And I love my friends dearly, and I would love to talk to them all individually about this, to really gain some understanding of, did you not read it properly? Did you like this unconsciously without thinking? Or do you actually support this thinking genuinely? Do you actually support someone's dis-ease? So I did reach out to one of them to try and gain some understanding, but we were finding that I guess the details of this conversation weren't so easily had over text message via Messenger on Facebook. And so we've resolved to have a chat later on, and we have very respectful conversations, and her and I do fall at very differing opinions about this whole topic. So I'm happy for that to stay there. But my horror was not in an ignorant person posting something ignorant and angry. My horror was in my friends who I believe love me supporting this prejudicial behavior. And as I said to my friend, I said, if this ended in someone being racist, and I recognize that there's a difference, you're born a certain color, which is not quite the same as making a life choice, but actually, you know, a lot of our statutes and stuff say you cannot discriminate on the basis of race, religion, medical choices, etc., right? So this is still a prejudice. To write someone off, to be angry at someone because of their individual choice, as if you have a right to tell them what's right or wrong, is prejudice. As if somehow you have the divine vision of God and they don't. In all cases, both sides can be right and wrong of this argument. And as a conscious, opinionated, very opinionated, clearly, being, I want to make sure that I allow for the fact that I might be wrong. But something I know is true is that I've never met an individual who throws their anger at anyone who is ever right. You can be angry and express, but to violently let loose and think that somehow you're vindicated because you're superior in some way in your decision or in your thinking, that's not right. More importantly, to unconsciously like this as a post on Facebook, or to stand around and support this and say nothing, what are you doing? Like, really, what are you doing? We're at a time in our world where it is time to either A, walk away because you don't support, or stand up and say something when people are ignorant and unconscious. Not because they should be vilified for their ignorance, but because shine a freaking light, for God's sake. And that doesn't mean the whole of the post doesn't have valid points, as my friend pointed out. You know, there's a lot of stuff in that post that could be supported, and people liking or not liking posts, you know, can't be just blanket red. And I'm like, actually, I disagree with you. If you just like a post and don't have a conversation, then you're supporting a violent act, no matter what came before it. If someone said I was going to go brick a black person in the face, that's violence, and it's prejudicial violence, and it's not okay. And someone should say that. So here I am saying it, right? There's no reason you should ever be bricking or spitting in anyone's face. How vile, how disgusting. And how much does that karma feed back into your sickness? Doesn't make you not a worthwhile person to be ignorant, but it does make you ignorant. And to think that your violence is justified ever, no matter what the circumstances, ignorance. I'm not talking about war. I'm not talking about any of those things. There are many, many different circumstances going on out there that are a whole conversation in themselves. And there's a lot of things that are violent that don't fall into what I'm talking about here. And I do believe that you should fight the demon. You know, I do believe that when someone comes to take your rights away, to take your sovereignty away, you should fight. And you should be, whether I agree with you or not, you should be uplifted for that fight, for standing up for yourself. But really, as Buddhas and as good people, because I don't believe that any of us are wholly good. I think all of us are assholes at times, you know. That's the reality and the beauty of the dichotomy of the human being. But I do think, stop being so unconscious in your support of others' stupidity. You know, the world is full of good people, to quote the Anand. The world is full of good people who say nothing. And that's why the world doesn't change. I want to reiterate to some who questioned why I would even bother with this post. And I bother with this post because my friends liked it. I bother with this post because I believe those friends, from what I've experienced from them, to be good people who fight for their own consciousness. And so I'm challenging them now. What are you doing? And by all means, have a conversation with me, because I'd love to understand that there's more there. I'd love to understand that that I missed something, because I'm pretty disappointed, to be honest. And I know that that's my own thing, but I really am. I'm quite saddened by it. So have a great day. By all means, comment down below. Erin Zen Warrior signing out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I would love to have a conversation. Always welcome the conversation. As I've said to some people who comment quite a lot, I don't always agree with you, but your opinion is still as valid, right? And I'm not going to dislike you for having your opinion and it being different to mine. In fact, I welcome it. That's what the world should be about. I'm not always right. I hope I'm not bloody right here. I do think, though, that the area where we should definitely be bringing more awareness, to reiterate, is think before you support something, as to whether you're supporting someone in their unconsciousness, because what you're doing is you're supporting them to be diseased. You're supporting them to be unwell. And I want my friends to say something to me when I'm doing that. I certainly don't want them to support me to continue to do it. Have a great day.